Right now, somewhere in your house, a dog is watching you. It knows the sound of your keys. It knows the difference between your happy voice and your tired one. It has never once tried to eat you. But the real answer for why that is true is far stranger than dogs are loyal. Because 20,000 years ago, the animal sitting by your feet was a wolf. And wolves do not do this. Wolves do not sleep on couches. Wolves do not wait by doors. Something happened between then and now that rewired an entire species, and it did not happen the way you were probably taught in school. You were probably told a story like this. A caveman finds a wolf pup. He raises it by hand. He feeds it, he trains it, and slowly it becomes tame. Generation after generation, humans bred the friendliest wolves together until eventually you got a dog. It is a nice story. It is also, according to most of the researchers who study this, almost certainly wrong. Here is the problem with the caveman story. Wolves are dangerous. An adult wolf is stronger than a human, faster than a human, and armed with teeth built to crack bone. Early humans were not living in a world with a surplus of calories to spend feeding a large predator for years, just hoping it might turn friendly one day. And even if one person did tame a single wolf, that would not explain how an entire species changed. Taming an individual animal is not the same as domesticating a species. Taming fades in one generation. Domestication rewrites the genome. So if humans did not choose the wolf, what happened instead? The leading theory, developed by biologist Raymond Coppinger, flips the entire story around. The wolves chose us. Picture an early human camp, sometime around the end of the last ice age. There is a fire. There is food waste. There are bones, scraps, and the smell of meat drifting into the surrounding forest. Now picture a wolf pack nearby. Most wolves in that pack are cautious. Fear of humans keeps them alive. But within any wild population, there is always a range of temperaments. A few wolves are bolder than average. A few are calmer around strange, upright, tool-using primates. Those bolder wolves start creeping toward the edges of the camp at night, drawn by the easiest meal on the landscape: garbage. This matters because scavenging off a human camp takes far less energy than hunting an elk through snow. A wolf that could tolerate being near people suddenly had a massive survival advantage. It did not need to be strong. It did not need to be fast. It just needed to be calm enough to stay close. And calmness is not just a behavior. It is a hormonal trait. It is heritable. So generation after generation, the wolves that could handle proximity to humans survived and reproduced at higher rates than the wolves that fled. Nobody was selecting them on purpose. The camp itself was doing the selecting. This is what scientists call self-domestication, and it may be the real origin of the dog. Not a human decision, but an accident of trash and temperament. Here is where the story gets even stranger. In the 1950s, a Russian geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev ran an experiment that would end up explaining exactly why this transformation could happen so fast. Belyaev bred silver foxes, selecting only for one trait across generations: how calm the fox was around humans. He was not breeding for floppy ears. He was not breeding for a spotted coat. He was not breeding for a curled tail. He was breeding purely for friendliness. Within just a few generations, something remarkable happened. The foxes did not just become tamer. Their bodies started to change. Their ears started to flop. Their tails started to curl. Some developed white patches of fur. Their skulls became slightly smaller, more juvenile looking. Their faces became rounder. None of these traits were being selected for directly. They came along for free, hitchhiking on the gene for calmness. Why would friendliness be tangled up with floppy ears and curly tails? Because the biological systems that control fear and stress hormones develop from the same embryonic cells that later form ears, tails, and pigment. And you accidentally turn down the volume on the developmental switches that shape its face and body too. Select for calm, and you get cute, whether you meant to or not. That single experiment explained why dogs across every breed on the planet still show these same telltale traits: floppy ears, curled tails, patches of white fur, faces that stay puppyish long into adulthood. You were never just breeding a friendlier wolf. You were triggering an entire developmental cascade that reshaped the animal from the inside out. So the wolves that lingered near human camps were not just getting tamer behavior. Over centuries, their bodies started shifting to look more like the dogs you know now. And once that shift began, humans noticed. A calmer, friendlier wolf near camp was useful. It could bark at danger before a human ever heard it. It could help track wounded prey. It could guard food stores at night. Now, for the first time, actual selective breeding by humans could take over where nature had already done most of the work. Genetic research backs this shift up in ways that are hard to argue with. Geneticist Bridget von Holt led studies comparing dog and wolf DNA and found something almost eerie. Some of the genetic differences between the two species sit on the same stretch of DNA linked to Williams syndrome in humans, a condition associated with extreme friendliness and a drive to bond socially with almost anyone. In other words, part of what makes a dog, genetically, is a variant that makes it almost pathologically eager to connect with you. And it is not just genetics, it is cognition. Researcher Brian Hare ran experiments comparing dogs to wolves and even to chimpanzees, our closest living relatives. He would hide food and then point at its location. Chimps, despite their raw intelligence, mostly failed to use the pointing gesture to find the food. Dogs, almost immediately, understood. They followed the point without any training at all. Wolves raised by humans from birth still struggled with this task the way chimps did. Dogs seem to be born already wired to read human gestures, to track human eyes, to treat a person's attention as meaningful information. That is not something they learned. That is something domestication built into them. Where exactly did this all begin? For a long time, the timeline was murky. But genetic archaeologist Gregor Larson led one of the largest efforts to pin it down by comparing ancient dog and wolf DNA from across Europe and Asia. His research points to domestication happening somewhere between 20,000 and 40,000 years ago, likely in more than one location, among hunter-gatherer groups who had not yet invented agriculture. That detail matters. Dogs were not domesticated by farmers looking to guard a herd. They were domesticated by nomadic hunters long before humans planted a single crop. Dogs may be the oldest domesticated animal on Earth, arriving thousands of years before the first domesticated sheep, goat, or cow. Larson's work also revealed something that complicated the simple, single-origin story even further. His team found genetic signatures suggesting wolves may have been domesticated more than once in more than one part of the world, only for one lineage to eventually spread and largely replace the others. That means the first dogs may not be the direct ancestors of the dogs alive today at all. Entire branches of that early partnership may have flourished for thousands of years, then quietly died out, leaving behind only fragments in ancient bones and buried DNA. The dog sitting in your living room is not the end of one clean story. It is the surviving branch of a much messier experiment that played out again and again, across different continents and different groups of early humans, each one striking its own uneasy truce with the wolves at the edge of the firelight. Archaeology adds another layer to this. In a grave in Bonn Oberkassel, Germany, researchers uncovered the remains of a man, a woman, and a young dog, buried together more than 14,000 years ago. Analysis of the dog's teeth revealed something striking. It had survived a serious illness for weeks, maybe longer, well past the point where a wild wolf would have simply died alone. Someone kept feeding it. Someone kept caring for it, long after it stopped being useful for hunting or guarding. That is not a working animal being tolerated for its labor. That looks like something closer to devotion, preserved in a burial site for 14,000 years. Think about what that means. Before humans had permanent homes, before humans had written language, before humans had agriculture, humans already had dogs. The relationship is not a footnote in human history. It might be one of the oldest continuous partnerships our species has ever had with another living thing. And the dog got something out of it too. A stable food source, protection within a group, a niche that no other predator on the planet had access to, living directly alongside the most resourceful, tool-using, fire-controlling animal in the ecosystem. From a purely evolutionary standpoint, becoming humanity's companion may be one of the most successful survival strategies any species has ever pulled off. There are an estimated 900 million dogs on the planet today. Gray wolves number in the low hundreds of thousands. The friendly ones, evolutionarily speaking, 1. This is also, in a strange way, a story about you. Every time you feel a flicker of trust toward a stranger who seems calm and unthreatening, you're running the same basic calculation those bold wolves ran at the edge of a firelit camp thousands of years ago. Approach carries risk. Approach also carries reward. Somewhere in your own evolutionary history, the humans who could correctly judge who was safe to let close and who was not survived better than the ones who could not. You did not invent trust. You inherited the same machinery for it that quietly rewired an entire species of predator into something that now sleeps at the foot of your bed. And maybe that is the real reason the bond has lasted so long. It was never really about training, or usefulness, or obedience. It was about two species independently discovering that survival did not always mean staying separate. Sometimes it meant staying close. None of this happened because a lonely human decided to raise a wolf pup out of kindness. It happened because a handful of bold, calm wolves saw an opportunity in a pile of human scraps, and their descendants never left. Every wag, every raised ear, every tilt of the head when you talk to your dog is the echo of that first hesitant approach at the edge of a fire, tens of thousands of years ago. So tonight, when your dog rests its head on your leg and looks up at you the way no wild animal ever would, you're not just looking at a pet. You're looking at the living result of the oldest experiment in trust that any two species have ever run on each other, one that started not with a human reaching out to a wolf, but with a wolf deciding, for the first time, that it was safe enough to stay.